All right. Okay. So, hi. If we have not met before, my name is Dr. Una. I am the founder of EntreMD and a pediatrician by training. I love helping doctors build profitable businesses so they can live life and practice medicine on their terms. And I was recently at a conference, the Women in Medicine Summit, hosted by Dr. Shika Jain. Big shout out to her. And I practice what I talk a lot about, which is how to show up at an event, how to 10x your investment, how to get the most out of an event. And I kind of want to walk you through that and then walk you through how I did that. Okay. And this is important because when you go for events, I want you to get a ton out of them. I want you to walk away from them and you're like, this was the best use of my time. And I want you to do that every single time. Okay. All right. So now there is a way of looking at events. You can look at there's always a cost to an event, right? If you think about it. So it could be whatever you had to pay for registration, right? So that's a cost to the event. It could be what you had to pay for your flight, for your hotel, for parking, for eating while you're away. There's a time away from work. And most importantly, which is really hard to quantify, but is probably the most expensive thing, is the time away from your family, right? The time that you have to spend away from your family. So I've been married for 16 years. I have 4 kids, and every time I have to go for an event, I have to be away from them, right? And so there's a cost to every event. But the thing is that you can convert that cost where it's no longer an expense, but it now becomes an investment. And the way to do that is to set it up where you get a return on your investment, right? And so the whole concept behind what we're talking about is how can I convert this into an investment? How can I get a return on my investment? All right, so there are three things that you're going to do. The first thing that you're going to do is I want you to think about what you're going to get out of the content. That is the very first thing, the content, right? And so at the event that I went for, it was really great. I mean, the keynoters were really great. It was so inspiring, practical action steps, and it really I just walked away with a broader horizon, like a broader picture of what I can do, what I can accomplish, who I am, what I represent. And it was really powerful. The opening keynoter was Dr. Kimberly Mannon out of Emory, and it was a phenomenal talk, right? Phenomenal talk that she did. And so the content is very powerful. Now I'm not going to talk about the content for too long because a lot of times when we go for conferences, we sit for the lectures or we sit for the talks and we're able to pull out of the content, right? But you want to pay attention, you want to pull out of the content, and you want to convert whatever you learn into action steps, right? And so a lot of times when I go for conferences, I would have a little notebook or an app, like the note on my phone, and after listening to it, I'm like, what stuck out to me, right? What is that reflection, and then what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do differently? And the beautiful thing about that is when I leave the conference, it's almost like I have this list of things to do that if I can do them over the next week or so, then I got a huge ROI from the meeting, right? And so the first thing is the content, paying attention to the content, content, reflecting on it, and pulling your own action steps out of it. Okay, so that's the very first piece. The second piece is paying attention to the organizers of the event, pay attention to what they do. And you may say, oh, Dr. Una, I'm never going to do events. It doesn't matter. I mean, but come on, it's life. We are going to do events, whether that's birthday parties, weddings, or whatever, or for your business, you're probably going to do events. And you don't want to wait until that time to start noticing what people do at events. So you pay attention. Like, what is their process for registration? How did they make it go smoothly? Like, pay attention to that. What was their conference bag like? Did they have a bag? What kind of swag was in it? The swag that was it mostly from sponsors, or does it look like things that they bought? Pay attention to that. How did they introduce the speakers? Did they use uniform slides? That's fascinating. How did they do that? What did they do for entertainment? And actually, at this conference, on the first night, they had a dinner and they had the nocturnists who I hadn't heard about, but they're amazing. It's all about storytelling. They have a podcast, they do live shows, and they came in and it was a lot of storytelling. They had a harpist who happened to be a third year OBGYN resident. And they had a second year medical student who played the cello. They had a student from Canada who did storytelling. It was so beautiful. And so when you think about that, you're like, wow, that is a powerful collaboration, right? They didn't have to bear the weight of the responsibility of the entertainment. They collaborated with somebody else who brought their A game, and it was really beautiful. So shout out to the Nocturnist as well, right? And so the thing is, when you look at that, there's some things you're gonna pay attention to. You're like, oh, that's nice, and some of them could be really simple. Like, so for instance, they had a slide that showed all the states that people came from. And when I host events, people come from out of the country. You know what I'm saying? And these are retreats, like, and people come from out of the country, and I would have been I don't think I've ever said, wow, for this retreat, we have X number of people from X number of states and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, I should add that because, that's huge. That's a big deal. Like, I take note of it, but I don't share it. And so it could be even little things like that. So understand that watching the organizers and what they do, that's an education in itself, right? And so that's something that I pay attention to. You should pay attention to because it's an education. And if you're able to pull things out of that either make you realize, man, I can do an event or I could do my event better. And because of that, the people who come to the event get bigger wins, then that's a huge ROI, a huge return on investment you got from the event you attended. Okay. So first is the content, second is the organization. And I will stop and say this, like when you see people doing a lot of amazing things in their conferences, it doesn't mean you should do everything. And I just throw this out because that's one of the mistakes I see people make a lot. There is such a thing as the pace of grace, which means you start from where you are, you do the best you can, you do an excellent event, meaning you do the best you can with the resources you have. And as you get more resources, you can make it bigger and better. So you don't want to, you've never done an event and you go to an event where there are 300 people, 500 people, and you try to reproduce what they're doing. That's not the idea, right? The idea is to observe the things, look at the things you can do for the stage of business you're at, and then just keep evolving. Okay. So I just want to make sure I throw that out there so you don't feel like you have to do it the way everybody's doing it. You don't. You have to do it the best way you can do it and then just keep evolving. The third thing, which is one of the most powerful things, is the networking. Okay. And if you're an introvert, I totally feel you. I'm an introvert too. In fact, halfway through, like this is why self-awareness is important. Halfway through the first day, I was like, I need to go to my room for 30 minutes, right? And I disengaged, went upstairs, went up to my hotel room and hung out with myself for 30 minutes because I really needed to recharge because I had been talking to a lot of people. I had spoken twice, had done all these things. And I was like, I just need a minute, to recharge my batteries. And so if you're an introvert, it doesn't mean you can't network. It just means that it's going to be a little draining for you afterwards and you're going to need to recharge. That's all that it means, right? All right. So I met the most fascinating people, right? I walk up to people, introduce myself to them, say hi to people who talk to me. I ended up talking to a chair of a medical school. I talked to a lot of longtime listeners of the podcast. They're like, you're the Dr. Una. I listen to you twice a week, every week. And if you don't listen to the EntreMD podcast twice a week, you should. It is for you. It is your free MBA. Okay. All right. And I got to talk to career advisors for residents. I got to talk to a lot of people who are changing medicine, right? I was like, oh my goodness, this is fascinating. I need to get you on the Doctors Changing Medicine podcast. Like, I got to meet so many of them. I got to meet an EBS student. Big shout out to Dr. Amelia Beakey. I got to meet an EBS alumni, Dr. Mary Renzel. Shout out to her as well, which was really, really nice. And, and there are lots of great conversations. And I cannot tell you how many conversations ended with, will you come talk to my people? Would you come speak to us? There's this group of 250 people or 300 people or whatever. I walked away from that one event, with 5 speaking engagements. Okay. 1 speaking engagement. And I walked away with 5. Okay. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is I could have listened to the content and gone to hide in my room. If I had not gone to engage, and I didn't go like, oh, let me go speak and snag 5 speaking engagements. That's not quite the way, networking works, right? But I know that when I make myself available, when I talk to people, when I engage with people, opportunities show up. That's the way it is. This was speaking gigs, it could have been anything, right? And so, and that's just what has happened right now. Those are 5 speaking gigs for right now, but there's so many connections, so many new relationships that I built that I have no doubt that probably another 5 or 7 will come out of those too, right? And so I say all of that to say, when you go for an event planning to get a return on investment, whether you're speaking or not. You pay attention to the conference, to the content, you pay attention to organization of the event, you pay attention to networking. You really network. People are like little pockets of treasures walking around, but you have to engage with them to unlock the treasure. Like literally, that's the way it is. And so I want to challenge you to do these 3 things. I want you to be this person that when you go to events, with the time spent away from family, with the money you spent, on the registration, the money you spent for the hotel and all of that, you spend it happily, knowing that this is an investment. I know how to create a return on my investment. Do you see what I'm saying? Like I know how to do that. And so that's the way you show up at events. And really I would love for you to share this with other doctors that you know as well. Because listen, yes, there is so much pain in the medical space, but there's so many amazing things that are happening. And the more we learn and the more we share and the more we evolve, the more we change the healthcare space, because once we change, everything changes. And I walked away from that meeting so hopeful. Like you guys know, I love doctors. I love our community. I know we're going to turn this around. I'm a big advocate for Vision 2025, the year of the physician, where we're going to be the leaders of the healthcare space inside and outside of the exam room. We're going to find joy in medicine again, and we're going to have financial freedom. So I'm a big believer in that. But I walked away from this conference with a much bigger appreciation for the hope there is in medicine. I am so excited. I'm so proud to be a physician. I'm so proud to serve physicians. I see where we're going, and it is a beautiful place. So I want to invite you to use this to show up at events differently. I want to invite you to use this, share this with other people, and you're like, listen, this is the way we go to events now, right? And together we are gonna change everything. We really are doing this. Okay, so if this helped you, let me know in the comments. I'm gonna engage in the comments as well, and I will see you the next time I come live. And if there's something you want me to talk about, a question you have that you'd love me to do a video about, just post it in the comments. Happy to do it always.